Well, hello, well-being warriors. Today I am talking protein, how much to eat, where to get it from, and an all-important look at the different forms of protein powders available for when we need a bit of a boost. And that can all be a tad confusing, can't it? There's so many choices. And I do get a lot of questions about which type to buy and which ones are best. Well, if you have been following me for a while now, you will know that I am a big believer in eating more protein, especially as we age. I talk a lot about that in a better second half. So eating or drinking protein in shakes, like this one, helps to eliminate food cravings, it stabilizes our blood sugar, and it supports our metabolism, which in turn keeps us a slimmer and healthier weight, while also helping to build strong muscles, all ingredients for a longer, happier and ultimately healthier life. But there is just so much chat about protein that it can be difficult to know where on earth to get started. And I think it's fundamental, firstly, to ensure that there's always some form of protein in each and every meal. So I generally approach each plateful with a protein first option. I then build the rest of my meal around this. So planning what my protein is, eggs, for example, a favourite, meat, chicken, tofu, cheese, fish, etc. This is going to be my first thought when planning what exactly is going to go on my plate. So this might look like having a couple of boiled eggs with some carrot sticks or a bit of avocado on the side for a breakfast or a brunch. But when it comes to knowing just how much protein to eat, that is where things can become a little bit confusing. So the current data suggests that 40 to 60 grams is the maximum amount of protein that the body can actually use for muscle synthesis in any one sitting, so don't massively overload. As a general rule, aim for a palm-sized amount of protein at each meal, so it makes sense that the bigger you are, the more you'll need, obviously, which is why my boyfriend always gets the bigger steak, for example. And over the course of a day, we need around 1.5 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. So if I'm around 60 kilos, that's 90 grams of protein, and that's pretty much a minimum. So 30 grams at each meal if I'm having 3 meals a day, or 45 grams of protein per meal if I am just having brunch and dinner, which is more usual for me because I'm usually intermittent fasting, not waking up and having breakfast. So if you are bigger, or if you are working out more intensely, you'll likely need 2 or even 3 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. Don't just take my word for it, take a listen to my podcast with Dr. Gabrielle Lyons for more on that one. Really interesting. And then of course there are times when we need a bit of a protein boost, after a hard workout, for example, and also times when we're just not going to be able to have the time to grill that chicken breast or even have time, frankly, to boil an egg. And that is where protein powders come in really handy. And they are actually something that I have incorporated into my routine much more in recent years as I become more aware that I need to add plenty of protein into my day. So these can be a really handy hack for upping the protein into your daily intake. But you have guessed it, not all protein powders are equal. Lots of different sources, from dairy to hemp. Some are even made from insects like cricket. Ew. And there are just so many types available, so which one is the best? Well, let's go through them then. So really it all boils down to individual needs. So listen up closely. Okay, first up, casein protein powder. I write about this in A Better Second Half. This comes from milk and it has really stood the test of time. It's a complete protein, meaning that it contains all of the 9 essential amino acids that we need for health. Essential being the key in the title. That being said, it contains a higher proportion of the amino acids histidine, methionine, and phenylalanine. You know what I mean. Histidine is really important for making blood cells. Methionine is used in a number of different processes around the body and is used to produce other important molecules. Glutathione, for example, the antioxidant, the master antioxidant in the body. I'm also a big fan of glutathione. Phenylalanine, which plays a significant role in our nervous system, so that contributes to the production of other important molecules, including our happy hormone, dopamine. Now, I do want to mention that casein is often more expensive than some other forms of protein powder, but it's absorbed more slowly by the body, so it provides protein at a slower, steadier rate. And that means that it can keep us feeling fuller for longer, that fantastic satiety effect. So because of this, it's really good if you are an avid fan of intermittent fasting or looking to drop a few pounds. Well, another helpful benefit of casein is that it contains all the good peptides that we need for a healthy immune and digestive system. So these peptides can also help with lowering blood pressure and helping to reduce the formation of blood clots. Very handy. So just 1 scoop of protein powder, casein protein powder, gives us around 24 to 28 grams of protein per scoop. So a generous serving, and it's something that you might like to add into a bowl of yogurt, for example, to make it even more protein heavy. So next up is whey. Now this is typically cheaper than casein because it is a byproduct of cheese making, so there's lots of it around. Remember Miss Muffet and her curds and whey? Well, it's a fast release protein and it gets used by the body much more quickly than casein. So this is the one that you might want to take before and after an intense workout. I would recommend whey protein powder if you are stepping up your exercise regime, for example, or if you're wanting to put on muscle tone more quickly, but it won't necessarily keep you feeling as full as casein. So maybe not so good if you're using this as a part of your intermittent fasting strategy to keep feeling fuller for longer. And again, whey is a whole protein. It's got all of the 9 essential amino acids, but unlike casein, it contains a higher proportion of the branched chain amino acids. That's leucine, isoleucine, and valine. What do these do? Well, leucine is important for repairing and building muscle. It's been shown to help prevent muscle wasting in older adults. So a really helpful one for those of us in midlife or later. Isoleucine also helps to control blood sugar levels, and it has a role to play in lifting our energy levels and improving our endurance. Useful for any runners out there. Well, valine, similar to both of these, also has a role in enhancing energy and aiding in muscle recovery and repair. So it's pretty easy to see why whey powder is just so loved by the gym bunnies. And again, like casein, 1 scoop of whey powder will yield us around 24 to 28 grams of pure protein. It also includes immunoglobulins that support our immune system and can help kill harmful viruses and bacteria. Now, of course, both of these powders come from milk, so while highly effective, they won't suit any vegans still out there. And so my recommendation here would be to use, say, pea protein. Although it's not as easily absorbed by the body as milk-derived powders potentially, pea protein is a reasonable alternative for those who prefer to be dairy-free. Well, pea protein is actually unusual for a plant food because it does contain all 9 of the essential amino acids in different proportions. And like whey, it's a good source of branched chain amino acids. It's important though, when choosing a pea protein powder, to do your research and buy from a well-established, reputable brand that does a lot of clinical testing. There's been a lot of chat in recent years about pesticides being present in some formulations, obviously being a plant. Well, a non-profit group in America decided to look into this recently, and they reportedly said that they found traces of heavy metals, lead, arsenic, cadmium and mercury in some brands of plant-based powders. So do your research is my advice. Now, I also want to talk about collagen powders and bone broth powders. So you'd be forgiven for thinking that these are one and the same thing. They often both promise things like radiant skin and strong joints, but they are a little bit different. So first up, bone broth powder. I like an unflavoured bone broth powder. I usually keep that in my kitchen. This is simply concentrated bone broth that's been dehydrated into a powder, and if it's unflavoured you can add it to all sorts of things. It contains a generous amount of protein. 1 scoop is around 20 grams, but it's important to note that it's not always a complete protein. It doesn't necessarily contain all 9 essential amino acids. Do check the label to see. Some of the important amino acids that bone broth does generally include are things like proline, arginine and glycine, all of which form the essential building blocks for collagen. And it also contains hyaluronic acid, which is really good for our connective tissues, and a number of important minerals like iron, magnesium and selenium, along with important fatty acids and vitamins such as vitamin A, B12 and vitamin E. Bone broth powder and bone broth is great for supporting the joints and the skin, but because it also contains gelatin, it's really good for our digestion. And how gelatin works, basically once it's in our digestive tract, is it binds with water and it supports the movement of food through our intestines. And I must say that I am actually a big fan of bone broth powders, but I might consider them to be a little bit more of a well-being supplement, as well as actually topping up my protein levels, if that makes sense. Finally, collagen powders. Now, unlike bone broth, which has a host of other nutrients that we've just discussed, collagen powders simply, generally contain pure collagen, which is often made from hydrolyzed collagen peptides. Could be marine, it could be bovine. I like the bovine one here. And this is able to be more easily absorbed by the body, these peptides, and you probably opt for these over bone broth if collagen is exactly what you're seeking. Because while bone broth does contain collagen, it may not have such a potent dose as the one that you'd find maybe in a pure collagen powder, but it does contain significant levels of protein. Again, always check the packet for info. So the benefits of a collagen powder are things like better skin health, supporting joints and muscle body mass. So bottom line, I do take bone broth powders. I mix them up occasionally. I'll use casein, I'll use whey sometimes. I'll swap for a collagen powder. I also take an encapsulated form of collagen, and that's something that I've uncovered here at length on here before, so I know that I'm definitely getting that full kind of hit of collagen and supporting healthy hair and skin and nails, as well as my joints and my muscles, and giving me a protein hit. Phew! Well, I hope that this whistle-stop tour through protein was helpful. Bottom line, eat more protein, however you take it. And as ever, do put your comments and your questions below. My team and I will do our level best to answer them. Until the next time you find me here, go well. Don't forget to subscribe.